So I just wanted to kind of talk through again in perhaps a little bit more detail this progression of energies that the Buddha outlines in a number of his maps. And so they begin, often the cycle begins with our perspective. So there's a sense of stepping back and assessing. There has to be what's known as right view in order to know that we're pointed in the right direction with our practice. And so this is the domain of what we were talking about before with how do we meet suffering? Does the difficulty we experience in life send us into a down spiral of more and more reactivity and struggle? Or are we able to use that difficulty and those challenges as a springboard for learning and transformation by approaching it with what we would call today as a growth mindset? What can I learn from this? How is this creating the conditions for transformation? So this is the initial application of wisdom that comes into contact with what is the particular conditions and context of the moment and our life, and senses, okay, where am I? What's needed right now? This is where the factor of faith or trust, confidence, aspiration plays a role, that sense of the possibility and willingness to engage. So there's this initial meeting of what is. So at any point in one's life, one's day, one's practice, it's helpful to begin from this place, right? You can't know how to get somewhere if you don't know where you are. Does that make sense? How can you possibly orient and go in a direction if you don't first know where you stand? So the very first movement, the very first application of anything is always it's kind of a stepping back and assessing, listening, attuning. Where am I? Where am I starting from? What's needed right now? And it's that initial question and framing of things that opens the field of possibility to know what practices to choose, which direction to go in. Otherwise, we're just kind of blindly taking some cookie-cutter approach and superimposing it on the lived reality of our experience. And it's a real hit or miss whether or not that particular practice, technique, or method is actually going to be useful for what we're experiencing. So the art of meditation practice, the art of spiritual practice, a lot of it is in that space of assessing where am I and what's needed, right? Is what's needed compassion, just some sense of tenderness and soothing for something difficult? Is what's needed connection, reaching out to someone else to feel less alone, to help regulate? Is what's needed more solitude, more quiet, more space? Is what's needed to be engaged, to actually act? Sometimes we feel overwhelmed or helpless or paralyzed by a certain situation. And what's needed is not more reflection, but to actually engage so that we can feel our sense of agency again, feel like we have a way of using our energy towards the good. So this is kind of the first phase of engaging in the spiritual development. Then within formal practice, as well as just within our life or our day, we're also looking for the presence of energy. So where and how do we experience our vitality being available? So in the course of a day, in the flow of one's life, this is noticing, where do you find willingness to put forth effort? What are the activities, what are the conditions and the contexts that you feel a sense of readiness and availability to apply yourself? And to just start to notice how that feels, to notice that capacity and what it feels like to have resources to devote, have inner resources to devote to something. How do you experience that? And then the same in our formal meditation practice. When and where is there the willingness and capacity to be with experience? That's the energy we are cultivating, is the capacity to meet what's happening in our experience directly in our mind and our body. Sometimes the energy that's needed is just the energy to sustain our attention. So there's this. So within this field of energy, within this field isn't quite the right word. Within this kind of phase of energy, of gathering energy, kind of listening for it, seeing where it is, and then kind of putting ourselves in its pathway. It's like catching a wave when you're at the ocean. If you're swimming and you try to catch the swell of a wave, there's a lull, there's a kind of a trough, and then something rises, something comes up. That's the willingness in the heart to be present, to engage. So we develop the capacity to sense that, to feel that, and then to ride that energy. So there's the application of energy, which is this connecting with experience, knowing what's happening clearly, whether it's the breath, an anchor like the breath, the sound, the body, or something else in our experience, a particular emotion or a mood or an impulse. It's really that sense of recognizing and connecting with what's happening. Oh, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what's happening right now. We make contact, the initial application of energy. And then to sustain it, how do we begin to stay connected to that experience? When we're able to start to stay connected to any experience, the hindrances begin to fall away. These are the five obstacles to spiritual practice that the Buddha talked about: craving and aversion, so really getting caught up with wanting things or resisting and avoiding them. The polarity of grasping towards and pushing or pulling away. Feeling sleepy and lethargic or overactivated, agitated, restless. Another polarity of energy is not enough energy, too much energy. And then the fifth obstacle is doubt, just kind of spinning, uncertain doubt. So these hindrances begin to abate. They begin to temporarily get reduced and attenuated the more we're able to sustain that energy and connection with whatever's happening. So initially, this is the anchor we're working with, home base, the breath, sound, the body. But it can also be other experiences. It could be like some unpleasant sensation in your leg or in your back. You connect with it, you stay aware of it, you're feeling it, you're sensing it. The more the mind connects with and sustains that experience, the other forces of distraction and energy imbalances and doubt don't have room to invade the mind, because your attention, your awareness is more connected with the experience that's happening. Okay, so quick review. First phase, just stepping back. Where am I? Right? What's happening? What's needed? Listen. Second, where is there energy? Where do you find willingness? Where is there any sort of capacity to be with what's happening? If there isn't, then something else is needed. Rest, stepping back, connection, compassion. So when there's any capacity to be with what's happening, then we're working with this connect. Okay, here's what's happening. Try to sustain it. This is where we're cultivating mindfulness. In the connecting and sustaining of attention, mindfulness is growing. Moment to moment, we're paying attention to what's happening, aware of it. So as that's occurring, we can begin to notice or sensitize ourselves to the presence of gladness or joy. Now this isn't like fireworks going off, super, super happy. It's a sense of sometimes just appreciation. This is what I was pointing to in the last meditation, is can there just be a sense of appreciation for the fact that we're practicing at all? When we're able to connect with what's happening and sustain our energy, that makes the mind happy. There's a sense of joy or uplift or gladness in the mind. So this is one of the this kind of energetic pattern or signature to begin to get familiar with. The application of energy, sustaining it, and then there's a gladness that comes in the mind that can be subtle, that then begins to settle into more of a sense of ease or a sweetness. It's just kind of contented, and this is tranquility that settles into concentration, stability. That sense of needing to work to stay with what's happening, to keep applying energy, to keep applying effort, to keep working to stay connected. Once that gets going enough, it's like you're pedaling a bike, and you're pedaling and you're pedaling and you're pedaling, and you finally get up enough momentum to coast, and then it's coasting, and then things can settle. So that energy gets applied, we work, there's a kind of a gladness or lifting, happiness in the mind that then settles into a sweetness, tranquility, more stability. Things might feel more still, clear, stable, quiet sometimes. Now this doesn't necessarily happen like, it's not necessarily going to be linear, and it's not like one meditation period is going to be this kind of clean arc. This is kind of happening repeatedly in small cycles, and then it breaks apart and we're lost, and then we come back. So the more you can start to just notice when is there energy being applied, when is there any sense of like, oh, okay, When do things settle at all? You'll start to feel these cycles. When things get more stable, more still, more steady, then the mind can begin to have a different perspective on things. This is where wisdom and insight arise. When the mind is clear and stable, it can recognize things as they are. So we kind of see something in a new perspective, or recognize how we've been feeling, or what's true for us, or some shift in our perspective. So let's practice with this a little bit in sitting. And I'll just point to at different times. It's not trying to create anything, but just being available for these different movements of energy in your practice. Feeling the willingness and availability of energy, applying and sustaining it. And then anytime there's some sense of continuity or things beginning to flow, just the appreciation of that, sense of gladness in the mind. And then any settling, any stillness, any stability or collectedness that's present. So go ahead and find a comfortable posture if you're not already in one. And so just that sense of stepping back. Where are you? What's happening and what's needed? So you notice, is there agitation? Do you feel stirred up inside? If so, what do you need to do to just meet that energy? If you feel quiet, you feel still, receptive, you just acknowledge that. Appreciate it. Something else is happening. Honor it. Make space for the truth of what's present for you. And then just see, so okay, what's needed here? Bringing your attention into your body if that feels supportive. Finding a balance in your posture between the sense of ease and relaxation on the one hand, and a sense of vitality and alertness on the other. And then just like we did in the Qigong, what happens if you just wait? Don't do anything. Just sit quietly and wait. Kind of let that anchor, this home base, come to you. You wait for that initial connection to happen on its own. The heart and mind can be receptive, awake. And then you begin to notice the breath, the sound, the body. Notice the willingness to be present. Capacity to be aware right here and now. There's a certain potential there for energy. And then you connect with experience. So there's the recognition of what's arising in the mind or the body. It's the function of mind that says, oh, this is what's happening. This sensation, this breath, this sound. Connects, recognizes. And then to sustain that, see if you can stay connected. It's like touching something, running your finger along it. It's contact, it's continuous. You feel the texture of it. So you feel the texture of the breath. You sense the texture of the sound. You experience the texture of sensation in your hands or your body. You're right here with it as it's unfolding. Connect and sustain. So initial application, sustaining energy. So even within this phase of applying energy, there can be a quality of restfulness. So the restfulness comes from the simplicity of being with the anchor. It's like we're simplifying everything. Everything else we're just setting aside for the time being. This isn't the only thing we do in meditation, but it's the foundation. So everything else can wait. Everything else can be attended to later. And in that simplicity of just giving the mind one thing to do, there can be a sense of ease and relief. Just this breath, just this sound, just this moment. So to the extent that that's present for you, just allow yourself to notice and enjoy that sense of ease and simplicity, putting everything else down. So we don't practice in a kind of blind way. We practice intelligently. So that sense of where am I and what's needed is available at any time. So you notice if you start getting sleepy and drifting, that sense of assessing the context comes back online. You notice, oh, there's not enough energy. There's too much stillness, too much calm. How do I bring more vitality into my system? Sit up a little straighter, take a deep breath, maybe even let the eyes open slightly. Or perhaps you notice you're getting agitated, getting really tight. Again, that capacity to assess the context comes back online. You notice, oh, I'm pushing, I'm trying too hard, getting really wound up. Let's just ease off a little bit here, just relax, settle. Don't try as hard. Just let it come, let it go. Doesn't have to be perfect. Meditation practice is more of an art than like a machine or a science. We're not just kind of drilling away at something. We're trying to learn how to work with and shape the energies of the mind and the heart. And that takes intelligence, responsiveness, sensitivity. So if you can be aware of one half of a breath, if you can be aware of just one part of a sound, that's real progress. It's a cause for celebration and appreciation. It's the filters of judgment and evaluation, of expectation, that prevent us from really seeing and appreciating what's happening. Just let all of your ideas go about how it's supposed to be. Just let go of the past and the future, the sense of meditations that were good, or trying to recreate something or match some ideal. Totally blank, open, clean slate. To just be here for one moment and to be awake, to feel and sense what's happening. Incredibly freeing. And then there can be a delight, a kind of gladness in the simplicity of being present without struggling, striving, or reaching for something. Our job is just to show up, pay attention, learn to stay balanced with what's happening. You don't have to fix anything, make it work, or even figure it out. Just learn to be awake and aware with what's happening in a balanced way. So when you're able to, for the time being, you just put everything else down and stay with the simplicity of your home base, the anchor. And when that's not possible, there's something else impinging on your awareness, some thought, mood, feeling or memory, some impulse or other experience, then you meet that as it is. Become aware of it on its own terms. And make space for it and breathe with it. Let it move through you without fighting it and without feeding it. So in a few moments, a bell will ring. And it's just a sound. So I invite you to just consider what's needed and what's supportive for you. If you feel engaged in the meditation, you might just continue with your eyes closed, continue practicing. If you're ready to shift your posture, move your attention somewhere else, and when the bell rings, you can let that happen. But to make it a conscious choice rather than just sort of automatically responding to the cue.